Hi guys, Fraggle Rock here. Today's video is going to be the start of a series of videos where I take a look at some classic game controllers and take them apart. Now, we've all had that one controller that's been sitting in a box in the attic for way too long, and when you pull it out, it's looking pretty gross. It's got dust all over it, it's got the dead skin cells, and maybe it's got some Cheetos and Mountain Dew stuck into the crevices there. Well, this video is going to take a look on how we can take these apart, clean out all that junk, and hopefully get these back into a better playing condition to where you won't be ashamed to hand this to your friend to start your favorite co-op. So this video isn't about taking apart and repairing controllers. This video is just looking at doing some general maintenance cleaning to make sure that these controllers can work for you as a daily driver for your everyday video gaming needs. So if you have to replace any buttons or do any circuitry work, we'll have to save that for another video for another time. This video is just looking at general maintenance. My videos are only going to start off with a couple game controllers at a time. In this first video, I'm going to take a look at the classic PlayStation 1 controller as well as my GameCube controller. Both of these controllers are in working order and they work pretty well. The PlayStation 1, however, does have a lot of grossness on it, and some of the buttons stick and aren't as responsive as they used to be. My GameCube controller, on the other hand, works pretty well, but it's got a lot of gross stuff on the C joystick, and some of the rubber has a lot of grime and stuff underneath it. So I want to take this apart and see if there's anything else inside that needs to be cleaned. Once I'm done cleaning these controllers, we'll bring them back over here into my retro corner and test them out again to see if they're working just as well as they were when they were brand new. So let's go ahead and take these over to my repair bench and get started cleaning them. All right, guys. Now that we're over here at the bench, let's go ahead and get some of our safety equipment on. Got my handy dandy black gloves. All right, so what am I going to be using to clean these controllers? Well, first of all, you're going to need a variety of different security bits to get into different controllers. Nintendo controllers after Super Nintendo, I believe, required that you use a tri-wing bit. Now you can buy tri-wing bits that are specific to the Nintendo game systems online, some pretty cheap ones for only a few dollars, but if you have an iFixit kit or any other security bit kit, then it includes the tri-wing bits with them. And they have them in a couple different sizes. So you should have the appropriate ones to take apart the controllers, such as GameCube. For PlayStation, however, we get a little lucky and all we need are small Phillips head screwdrivers to open these controllers up. I also have with me my toothbrush for cleaning the silicone pads and getting little bits of grime out of the crevices of the controllers. I have my electrical contact cleaner. I've got some just plain anti-static multi-surface cleaner. A soapy bath of water. I'm going to clean the plastics and the silicone and maybe even some of the circuit boards using this. I have a couple towels here to keep everything dry and to store the bits. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the Sony PlayStation controller. Now this particular Sony PlayStation controller is one of my original controllers. So it has seen its fair share of grubby hands for a long period of time. This eventually was just thrown in a box into an attic and wasn't touched for a really long time. Today is going to be the first day that I pull this thing apart and just see exactly how dirty this is. On the back we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws. Again, these are Phillips head screws. So you just need a small Phillips head to open this up. Man, these things are in there good. These do not want to come out. All right, that should be all of them. And yep, got them all out. One thing I've learned about taking apart these PlayStation controllers, at least with the PlayStation 2 controller, you have to be really careful about when you place this all back together, that the very thin film, the conductive film that goes in here for these buttons, goes in there nice and flat. If that gets bent in any direction, it's going to have a hard time making that contact between the button, the silicone, and the contact. So make sure when you're putting these back together that that thin film slides in there really nicely. Oh, I forgot a screw. No wonder it's not coming out. There we go. Oh, wow. ABS plastic. It's typically this ABS plastic that, it's a cheaper grade of plastic. It's good for like mass-produced kind of stuff like this and tools, but I believe it's the ABS plastic that is very prone to yellowing, especially these lighter colors. You'll see the yellowing a lot more. There is nothing much more to disassemble here. I could take apart the buttons. There is a tiny screw holding the trigger buttons down. Let's go ahead and take that out so I can clean the buttons themselves. So there's that plate and the button. Take out the other screw. So again, I'm removing, there's a little tiny screw right there. All right, so I'm gonna take these buttons, these plates, and this controller, the bottom half of the shell, and I'm gonna put it into my soapy bath. And then I'm gonna use my toothbrush to scrub all of the plastic bits nice and clean. Okay, let's work on getting this circuit board out. Notice the way that the wiring has been routed through. This is really important that this is put back the exact same way that it was taken apart, okay? Silicone part goes right into the bath. Here are the trigger buttons. Okay, so these trigger buttons actually are a lot different than the PlayStation 2. There is a little clip in the back here. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's the trigger, here's the silicone. I'm just gonna put this, I'm not gonna bother taking this button out of its housing. I'm just gonna throw this whole thing into its bath. All right, let's go ahead and take off the other one. Silicone into the bath, button into the bath. On the back here, we have a pin connector. I'm gonna remove this pin connector so I can clean the PCB. I am not removing the pin connector. It does not want to come out, so I'll just clean the PCB with it on there. Here we've got the upper half of the PlayStation controller. Here's more silicone, goes into the bucket. Also really important to check that there is no cracks or tears in the silicone of your controllers here. Make sure that it is in one full functional piece. If there's any tears, cracks, or breakage of the silicone, it's best if you just go and buy new replacement pieces. Although you can still clean this and put it back in the controller, it's just not gonna work as good, and it's not gonna work as well to keep all the dust and dirt out of the circuitry. If your rubber's broken, get a new one. The buttons, everything goes into the wash. Ugh, look at how gross this is. It's hard for this to focus, but look, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but there is like this crud coming off. All right, throw this into the wash bin. All right, so while I let these soak for a little bit, let's go ahead and clean off the PCB. Again, I'm going to use my WD-40 electrical contact cleaner. This is a deoxy spray, meaning that it will deoxidize any of the metals that may have formed some kind of oxidation. You can think of oxidation as rust, and that's not good for electronics. So this spray will help remove some of that oxidation, and I'm also going to use my toothbrush to sort of scrub off any dirt or stuff that might be on there. Let's go ahead and clean the contact pads where the buttons will press. Again, I like using the WD-40 electrical contact cleaner because it doesn't evaporate too fast. It gives me a little bit of time to work with it before it evaporates. All right, I'm just doing a general inspection of the board to see if there's anything I need to address. There is some, it looks like old Celastic covering. So what they'll do is they'll put a coating on here, like a uniformal coating, to help protect the electronics from any outside or atmospheric oxidation. It's sort of just this thin layer of celastic covering to just protect the circuitry. Everything else looks pretty good. The capacitor on the back here isn't broken. I'm happy with that. I'm just gonna put that off to the side. Let's get to scrubbing these parts down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go through each part here and give it a good scrubbing. What I'm trying to get rid of here is all that gross brown dirt. I don't even know if it's dirt. I don't know what it is, to be honest. It's like if dead skin cells collected over the years and mixed with like I don't know, Cheeto bits. All right, that seems to do it for all the parts here. So I got them all lined up, all spread out. Try to dry them out a little bit. I'm gonna hit them with the canned air just to help with the drying. All right, through the magic of film editing, I have managed to dry these out all the way through. We are looking pretty good here. I have a little bit of water, like a little droplets on the outside. That's not gonna matter much when I'm putting this back together. So what I've done was I gave everything a bath in soapy water. I dried it out. I cleaned the circuitry, the PCB of the controller with some deoxy, wiped it down with some microfiber cloths, and just gave everything a really good scrub. You can already see that the silicone looks a lot better than it did in the previous shot. It's a lot more clear, it's not as brown. The plastic casing, the plastic shells of the controller no longer have that brown gunk around the edges. Everything's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and put this back together and move on to the next controller. Remember, it's really important to get that cable routing back to its original position. all the cables are back in their original position. Let's apply the top. There we go. PlayStation controller, all nicely put back together, cleaned out. Now we need to go test this as soon as we're done with my other controller, the GameCube. Remember, I said this GameCube controller still works. It's still in working order. It's just really gross and dirty and just needs its general routine maintenance cleaning. It has a lot of dust. The rubber's all dirty, and I'm gonna take this apart, clean off the contacts, clean up some of these pieces, put it back together, and hopefully it still works. So here we go. Again, for most Nintendo products after the Super Nintendo, you will need a tri-wing screwdriver in order to open this up. You can buy them online pretty cheap, or if you have an iFixit set, it usually has the tri-wing security bit in there. Ugh, I don't know if you can see that right in here. All that gross schmutz. All right, I got some screwdrivers holding the trigger shoulder buttons together. I'll probably take those out so I can get those clean. Here's the rumble part. This is the shoulder button contact pads on either side. You'll notice that both the C-pad and the joystick are firmly attached to their module here. Since I'm not super confident on how to remove these without breaking them, I'm not going to bother removing them. I'm just going to clean around them. However, the silicone pad I can take off and put it into the water. As with the rest of these, I'm putting these into my soapy water bin to give them a good scrubbing. All right. There we go, goes into the wash bin. I am going to take the screws out on this. Ooh, screws are on there tight. This whole spring unit's gonna need to be put back on very carefully, so make sure you don't lose the spring. All right, everything's out of here. This whole thing goes into the wash. While I let those soak for a little bit, I am going to get a little bit of soapy water on my toothbrush. I'm gonna try to scrub this crud off, and then I'm going to clean it down with some multi-surface cleaner. I'm also holding the C button down rather firmly so it's not wiggling around too much. And I will hit this with some canned air just to make sure I don't leave any water on any of the circuitry. I'm also going to use some of that contact cleaner, the electrical contact cleaner, to clean the rest of this board. Matter of fact, I can just remove this from the board. There we go. All right, already much better. Let that go. Time for the main joystick. This one isn't as dirty, so I'm not gonna have to scrub it too much, but I am gonna just scrub underneath, make sure I get all that dirt and grime out. Yeah, it's hard to see in the camera, but I got underneath there, make sure it's nice and clean. I'm gonna hit with some electrical cleaner. Really sort of scrub down that PCB, make sure if there's any debris in there that I'm scrubbing it away. Oh no, you can see that cleaner washed away whatever number was printed on the back here. So that must have just been printed on there with some regular ink and not coated, because that electrical cleaner just took it right off. Oh well, lost some numbering on there, but not a biggie. Okay, next up. Let's give these bits a good scrubbing. These buttons aren't too gross, so they're not requiring too much cleaning. Now we gotta get all these dry and put it back together. All right, let's get this back together now. All right, so it is important that the right plate goes back on the proper side, because this one has a little notch cut out for where your Z button is located. All right, everything's back together. Everything feels good. All the buttons are springy. It looks 100% better. No more dust, no more grime. No more grime on the C stick here. Looking pretty good. All right, all that's left is to test out both this one and the PlayStation and see that they still work. I guess after routine cleaning, it's good to see if both of your controllers still work. Okay, so I'm over here at my TV now, and I'm going to test out the GameCube controller first. This was the one that I cleaned last. Like I said, this controller was already working ahead of time. All I did was a sort of a routine maintenance clean. So far, start button's working pretty good. Do Marth. All right, jump is working. Let's see. That seems to be working okay. Only thing that's not working is the C buttons. So it seems to be all working fine. Yeah, don't know why C's aren't working. For testing out the PlayStation controller, I'm going to hook it up to my laptop using the May Flash 3-in-1 Magic Joy box, and I'm simply just going to see that my controller works in the setup field. So I'm going to go to input. So far it's working just fine. I can go down to my user key bindings. Yeah, all the buttons are working great. It looks like both controllers are working, and I'm happy with that. Just did some maintenance cleaning here, some just general routine cleaning, and now we've got 2 working controllers. Well, that seems to be it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. When did my pants change colors?